I've got to admit, I really enjoy doing reactions to videos where celebrities are talking about their experiences in Australia. You've probably figured this out because I've done quite a few by now. The latest that I came across, and I'm hoping that this isn't hit with a copyright and doesn't end up even publishing or ends up being demonetised, which is usually the case with bigger things like Jimmy Kimmel Live. But this is an interview with Kenneth Branagh where he talks about his visit to Australia, and it's actually quite an entertaining one. So I really wanted to do a reaction to this. So let's just jump straight in, shall we?
I'm impressed that you're here and you have your wits about you because you flew in from Australia. You went today, right?
I did, yeah. I got in from Australia this morning, and because they're, it slightly baffles me, they're 18 hours ahead. So I arrived 4 hours before I left. And yeah, it's true. It's true. That's what happens. And then you fill in the wrong date on the form you have to sign when you come in. So then you get sent to the back of the line because you said it was tomorrow when in fact it was yesterday.
Oh, they send you to the back of the line.
Yeah, well, it's just because you're wasting their time. The numbers are wrong.
Well, the president has some tough new immigration laws, so...
I have to say, I get really confused well, not all the time, but there are times when I do get quite confused when I'm following various American channels and they're doing like a live stream and they're talking about it being like Thursday when I know it's Friday, and it does my head in, and it takes me a few moments to realign myself with the fact that, yeah, they're actually still in Thursday. The other issue I find, some of you may be aware, I've got a true crime channel as well, and sometimes when I'm using clips for that and referring to dates, it just gets really confusing because I have to refer to the dates based on American dates, even though on my YouTube they show up as Australian dates. It just gets so very confusing. And to be honest, I get really confused with this whole idea of putting the month before the day as well.
If you make a mistake, you go right back to the end of the line.
Exactly. You come from Australia, it's like being in your own sci-fi film.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like Australia?
I love Australia.
Had you been there before?
I was there many years ago, and as a young actor, and made lots of great friends, and so it was terrific to be back there. It's the one place in the world where they call me Kenny. Everybody calls me Kenny.
Do they really?
They do, yeah.
They know you're a sir, right? They call you Kenny?
But they say Kenny, mate. They say Kenny.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is Australia. We don't use honorifics. We rarely refer to people as Mr. or Mrs. whatever. We talk to people by their first name. We shorten their names. We don't call them sir. And it's not a disrespectful thing. It's just the way of doing it in Australia. It's not saying that people disrespect him. It's more saying that they accept him as one of them, which I guess you could say is more of a compliment than if they were calling him Sir Kenneth, which just, for an Australian, that just sounds a little bit too much.
And somebody said to me, Kenny, if you want to speak Australian, you either put an E on the end, like we do with you, Kenny, or you put an O on the end, which they do with you, so you'd be Jimmo.
I would be Jimmo.
Jimmo.
Well, actually, he wouldn't be Jimmo, because just to further confuse foreigners, we would have to stick a B in there, so he would be Jimbo. Or Jimmy, or Jim, but not Jimmo.
Really?
Jimmo Kimmelo.
Why wouldn't I? So if there's already like an E sound at the end of your name, you get an O. Yeah. Otherwise, you get an E.
I guess there's an EO at times, you know.
Wow. Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah. Oh, how about that? Nobody called me Jimmo, but I didn't know anybody when I was over there. So I think it's more fun to go someplace when there are people you know there and you can stay with.
Okay, I honestly can't think of any examples where you would shorten someone's name and use an EO on the end. So I'm not sure if that is accurate. Certainly doesn't sound it.
How long were you there?
I was there for a couple of weeks. We met a lot of friends and a lot of kangaroos. Did you meet kangaroos while you were
I
there?
didn't meet any kangaroos, but I went to the zoo and saw some kangaroos. You saw some in the wild?
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't like that. I don't like,
Yeah.
I like animals to be contained in a very like secure thing, and
These
then I'm
are
fine with it.
impressive.
I've noticed that there are some Americans who have this real fear of animals other than cats and dogs. It's like something that is so weird to me. And I guess in Australia it's because we're not as densely populated, so we do have regional areas where, we have farms full of sheep, or even in suburban areas, you probably don't have to go far and you're going to come across a paddock with a horse in it. And kangaroos, well, if you've ever been camping anywhere in Australia, the chances are you have come up close and personal with a kangaroo. But I've noticed there really is this thing with Americans where they just, even even sheep, they're scared of them, a lot of Americans. Now, I will admit, I am not great with cows. I will not go in a paddock with cows. I don't know why, but that's just one of those irrational fears. I just don't cope with cows. But I'm fine with sheep, goats, horses, kangaroos. Not emus so much, but then I think that is well and truly justified.
I feel like a lot of them have been to the gym. You know, they have a lot of upper body strength. They do. They have a lot of upper body strength. I think they're very, very cross about having short arms. And so they overcompensate. Everything's a little out of whack. It's very useful for being a kangaroo, but it's a bit annoying when you compare yourself with other beings. And so they've got the big, enormous legs, and then they have to use the tripod tail as well, which is slightly irritating for them. Anyway, they come across pretty surly.
Did any of them menace you? Were they coming up to you?
They gave me some rough looks, Jimmy.
They did?
Really, yeah.
That's classic. I have visions in my head of these thug kangaroos that are all muscly and like looking at you like, don't you come this way, with raised eyebrows. It is comical. And I mean, let's be real. He's talking about their short arms, as he calls them. Kangaroos are built for speed. They're also built for defending themselves. I mean, the whole thing is that the way that they're built means that they can be grazing on grass, and if they get whiff of a dingo coming, then they can be upright and gone really quickly. So, this whole thing about them being resentful because they've got short arms, that's classic. And yeah, I know he's joking, but it's just very amusing.
And there's also a creature called a wallaroo, which is a smaller version of a kangaroo, and the male has very, very dark fur, and it's very scary. I think there's easily going to be a new horror film called Wallaroo.
Wallaroo, huh? Is that part wallaby and part kangaroo?
I think so. And part monster was what I felt.
So, I was all set to turn around and say, that's a joke. You don't have wallaroos, you have wallabies or kangaroos. But I actually hopped online and I did a bit of research, and there are credible sites which actually talk about wallaroos. They're saying that there's 3 types of wallaroos around Kakadu. So clearly it's just that, as someone who grew up in Tassie, where mostly we had wallabies and you rarely saw roos, I just didn't know they were a thing. Looking at this image of a wallaroo, it looks like they still have the very, very powerful legs that kangaroos have and the powerful tail. But the top part of them looks a bit more like a wallaby than a kangaroo. Because when you think about wallabies, they're not quite as powerful in the bottom, really. So I've learnt something today. Wallaroos actually are real. And I was going to say, well, maybe it's something that is a new thing or a new term that they've come up with. But then when I look at this picture, it definitely looks like it is somewhere between a wallaby and a kangaroo. So, a lesson for me, I've learnt something from a pom.
A weird thing, kangaroos, like it seems like they're the only animal that really punches humans.
Yeah, and in fact, way back, I had to do a fight with a one-armed, one-eyed kangaroo. Not so much a fight, more a sort of a grapple, like a mild grapple. But nevertheless, they're scary individuals to be close.
Was it a trained animal? Or?
It was a trained, but rather bored working with me.
I see.
Yeah. The other thing I discovered, do you find this disturbing? I did.
Yes, whatever it is, yes.
Yeah, like inside the pouch, which you imagine to be full of the most charming kind of, sort of Walt Disney kind of warmth for the little Joey, it's actually like the inside of a mouth. So it's all salivary, and, all those dreams you had as a kid of being in there with the little Joey, and it was always such fun, because Mummy would look after you, it'd all be fine. You don't want to be in there.
How intensely were you grappling with this animal?
Well, I don't know where he got that information from, because that is totally incorrect. And I actually had to look it up just to be sure, because I'm like, what is he talking about? That is definitely not what I knew. Now, this is an excerpt from an article, but basically, it's skin. The pouch, the inside of the pouch is the same texture of the kangaroo's skin. It's hairless. It's hairless because it has teeth in it, and of course, because it gets super, super warm. It's the same as the body temperature of the mother kangaroo. So at worst, apparently it gets a bit sweaty, which I don't like the thought of that. But it's not like the inside of the mouth at all.
That you know that. Did you have relations with a kangaroo?
I got too close to that pouch, is all I can say.
Okay. That would suggest to me that this kangaroo that he was working with may have had some kind of infection and possibly wasn't being cared for adequately. Just my observation. So it was a kind of a quick one, but I thought it was fun, and I've learned something. I didn't know that there was such a thing as a wallaroo. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thanks for listening. If you're new, please subscribe to my channel. Also, please hit the like button and leave a comment below. Thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one.